Alright, Austin from Team Pantheon coming to you here with another deck profile of Input the Nubatamas. New clan that came out in set 13, and I was rather excited to get them, so let's dive into my build I've been working about. Obviously, they have an ace out right now, Kabuki Kongo, and I run 3 of him here, and he's pretty counterblast efficient, simple enough. Whenever he attacks, you counterblast 1 and bind their entire field. And love about Nubatama, they manipulate the bind zone, new mechanic. And 3 or more in there, he gets 10,000. So he's a nice little beat stick that plays really well off the starter, which can retire. And I'll get into her later. And what's an ace without 4 Break Ride? Kujikiri Kongo? And put it simply, whenever you ride a Nubatama over him, your opponent is forced into discarding a card and instantly binding a card in their hand, making it rather pressuring for them to guard, usually, especially with a Kabuki Kongo play. And I'm going to say we're getting into our grade 2s right now, even though this is a grade 3. I personally see it more as a grade 2. This is Voidmaster, and he came out a while ago, but I find him very useful, but I only run 1 in the deck, because there was only a need for 1. Voidmaster, his main mechanic is if I hit it, and if my cards are lower in my hand than my opponent's, I force them to discard. Discard and binding is all of what Nubatama is about. So, there's no need to really run too many of him. That's why, like I said, 1. Consistent enough, I get him enough. Alright, now for some real grade 2s. I run Kokujoko, which, whenever a card is bound, he gets 2,000 power, making him a very utilistic swinger, usually 11 if you break ride, and much higher if you use Kabuki's skill. So, usually equaling him up to 19 by himself if your opponent has a full field. Pretty nice, pretty nice. I run 2 10Ks. I realized that I would prefer 10Ks in my deck. They're pretty nifty, and I love the artwork on the card. It's, you know, Japanese Oriental. I'm into that stuff. Well, anyways. Older Nubatama card, Chigasume. If I attack and my hand size is greater, because I'm discarding your cards and everything, he becomes an 11K attacker, and that allows me to hit just about anything I want in the front row, so I heavily advise him for any Nubatama decks. Very, very nice card. I've used him a lot. And this is a card I've been tossing around, Tamahagane. He's simply put, when you ride him or call him to rear, you bind a card on your opponent's field. It's, he doesn't have as much use if you're going to ride Kabuki anyway. But, I prefer to ride him than any other grade 2. But, other than that, you could probably replace him with 10Ks, simply. But I like having 2 in there just for that option of maybe early game binding and then playing off the starter. And you'll understand that soon. Actually, you know what? I'm going to pull her out for you guys so I can explain her. Because Kuroko here, she's the starter for Nubatama, the main starter, I should say. She's incredibly important in gameplay, and some people run more than 1. I find 1 just enough, but put simply, if she boosts an attack that hits a Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 1 and retire things from the bind zone. That's right, just get rid of them completely. It's a sneaky little ninja skill that they've been working on in the shadows for all this time.
Well, I mean, they were bound for a reason, right?
Yeah, that's very true. Well, alright, grade 1s, 4 perfs. Simple enough, and I personally think he looks really cool with the Murakumo perfect card. I don't know, but I think they look kind of similar. One's red, one's blue, I think, so cool perf. I run 4 Fukis. Now, Fuki has a bit of a switch on him. His printed skill is not his official skill. There was a little mix-up with his skill. So his original skill states, Counterblast 1, put him in the soul. If your opponent has 3 or less cards in their hand, you choose 1 randomly from their hand. and bind it, and they get it back at the end of the turn. Well, it's been switched around to if you have less cards in your hand than your opponent, making it much more flexible and much better. And he's a great card. He puts so much pressure on your opponent when it comes down to late game, and I'm glad for the switch, honestly. It makes him so much better. But yeah, that little tidbit right there. Alright. Next grade 1, Dreadmaster. Heavily advised. He's another one of the older Nubatama cards, because the older Nubatama cards, I'm using all 4 in here. But he's the booster, and if he boosts anything that hits during a battle, you can counterblast 1 if you have less cards than your opponent, then they discard. And I have found that incredibly useful. And
I'd probably say one of the best cards in your deck, honestly.
Probably. Dreadmaster is so great. I advise 4, and if not that, 3, no less. No less at all. He's perfect. Alright, getting into grade 0s. Before I go into triggers, there are 2 grade 0s I run besides the starters that aren't triggers. And this is Hagane. He, very similar to the other Nubatamas from before. Counterblast 1. If I have less cards in my hand, you discard. And he is the perfect guard for late game. He gives you that edge late game that you need when your opponent and you are starting to run out of cards in your hand. It makes it much more pressuring for your opponent, and it's usually a surprise factor. You know, ninjas. Do you expect it? Nubatama does not have many triggers out as of now, so we have to run Rainbow. So, obviously, 4 heal, 4 stand, 4 crit, 4 draw. Digimon Chicken, Epic Dragon, random weird scroll whose name I can't pronounce, and adorable little chick. Look at her, she's so cute. With all that fire and stuff around her. Well, that is it for my Nubatama deck. Please rate, comment if you have anything you want to talk to me about, comment, I'll see what I can do, and I hope you guys enjoyed what you saw.